Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the webinar on artificial intelligence. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode. During the course of presentation, if any participant intends to ask questions, they can use the chat box option appearing at the bottom of the screen to submit their questions to the speakers. All questions will be taken up at the end of the session. Please note that this conference is being recorded. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touch-tone phone. The speakers for the webinar today are Mr. Deepender Kumar, Partner, Grant Thornton Advisory Private Limited, and Mr. Sashi Shekhar Chogle, Chartered Accountant, Bengaluru. I now hand over the call to Mr. Sashi to start the webinar. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Hello and welcome to this Grant Thornton webinar on artificial intelligence and its impact on business. Grant Thornton in India is a professional services firm providing an array of services ranging from assurance, governance and risk management, tax and regulatory advisory, compliances, as well as growth navigation offerings such as forensic and investigation, valuation, government and public sector consulting, IT advisory and cybersecurity, and digitech services. Present in India through 15 offices across India and driven by over 3,000 people, Grant Thornton India aspires to be the best growth advisor to dynamic businesses. Today's webinar is the second in the series of technology-related webinars that we wish to bring to our audience. The first was on blockchain. In case you missed it and wish to see now, you can go to the YouTube channel Grant Thornton India LLP and find it there. As I mentioned earlier, GT is a professional services firm. Although there is a team specializing in digitech and IT security advisory that can speak about and deal with issues as technical as they can get, the content for this particular webinar is designed keeping a lay, non-technical person as the focus. More than 20 years ago, the power of artificial intelligence of computers was already evident when the world champion of chess, Garry Kasparov, was defeated by Deep Blue, a computer developed by IBM. Indeed, the artificial intelligence was founded as an academic discipline way back in 1956 and has experienced several waves of optimism, followed by disappointment and the loss of funding, followed again by new approaches, success, and renewed funding. More recently, the revolution in telecommunications, increasingly sophisticated devices in the hands of a common man, have led to a big surge in data, which has caused a renewed focus on how artificial intelligence can be harnessed to make effective use of all this data. Which is why we are hearing this term more often than these days and wondering about it. This webinar's endeavor today will be to address that curiosity without sounding pompously nerdy or technical. I have with me Grant Thornton India's in-house technical expert who has remarkable experience in this domain. He is Deepender Kumar. Deepender is a partner at Grant Thornton in digital transformation team. He has about 22 years of experience and worked as Director Engineering at a global digital product engineering services company. Deepender was the group head managing various engagements in the US and EU markets for digital transformation, data warehouse business intelligence, data and analytics competencies. He leads the digital transformation initiative in India and has established Lean Minimal Viable Product Lab as part of digital acceleration model. He has worked at one of the Big Four, where he led the information management sub-practice and mainly worked in FS/ITES domains. His main responsibilities included building the information management practice for master data management, data integration, data quality, modeling, architecture, warehousing, managing delivery of data track, providing data strategies, analysis of MDM or master data management needs, tool evaluation and selection, BI strategy, tool evaluation, selection and implementation, RFI, RFP creation and evaluation, building reusable assets for data management. He has had stints with various other companies, owning the data architecture of technology platforms and creating ISTM product line on top of the platforms. Before all this awe-inspiring technical jargon and Deepender's credentials begin to mystify you, let me bring him in and take over from here. Do feel free to submit your questions to us as you listen to him. We shall try to address as many as time permits. But in case we don't address your questions today, we shall get back to you separately. Over to you, Deepender.
Thank you, Shashi. Thank you, everyone, for joining the webinar. Today's times are very exciting times, and every day when you read a newspaper or you go to any website, you will see an article on artificial intelligence and how it is changing the life. During the month of September, I was actually reading Economic Times, and I saw this very exciting report from the World Economic Forum on the future of jobs. As technological breakthroughs rapidly shift the frontier between the work performed by humans and those performed by machines and algorithms, global labor markets are undergoing major transformation. Today, 29% of the work is done by machines, and it will increase by 52% by 2025. Even though more work will be taken over by machines, but overall, a net positive outlook for jobs is predicted. The report also emphasizes on the fact that more jobs will be created than lost. However, this finding is tempered by optimistic estimates around emerging tasks and growing jobs, which are expected to offset declining jobs. The report also indicates that 75 million jobs may be displaced by a shift in the division of labor between human and machine, while 133 million new roles may emerge that are more adapted to the new division of labor between human and machines. Interestingly, the report also talks about what will be the roles which will be, emerging roles which will be in demand. Among these roles will be data analytics, data scientist, software application developer, and e-commerce and social media specialist. The roles which are also expected to grow that leverages distinctively human skills such as customer service workers, sales and marketing professionals, training and development, people and culture, and organizational development specialists, as well as innovation managers. Now, there are certain, the report talks about then the jobs which may not be that relevant in future. So let me just name a few. Data entry clerks, accounting, bookkeeping and payroll clerks, administrative and executive secretaries, assembly and factory workers, client information and customer service workers, business services and administration managers, accountants and auditors, material recording and stock keeping clerks, general managers, general operational managers, postal service clerks, cashier and ticket clerks, telemarketers, door-to-door sales workers, news and street vendors. I mean, these are the jobs which may not be relevant in the future. Even though there are jobs which will be created, but those skill set will be different than the skill set which are required today. And the major contribution in this shift will be attributed to artificial intelligence. Now, if you look at the vocabulary which is changing today, everybody talks about cloud, talks about artificial intelligence, speech to text, computer vision, probability, future, intelligence, data science, supervised learning, unsupervised learning. to the extent that even my wife, who's a homemaker, also knows about artificial intelligence. And one day she was asking me, how can I use artificial intelligence in kitchen, and will the technology replace her also? My kid thinks that Google has answers to everything and money can be downloaded from internet. Almost all the educational institutes have realized that this is something which they have to teach to their students. So we're getting more and more requests on training on artificial intelligence. Each and every function in the company are trying to understand what is this technology and how can they use this technology to increase or change the way they work. I have recently conducted a session with human resource in our company as they wanted to understand how employee engagements can be improved using the technology. I have also nowadays seeing that more and more auditors are also requesting for technology workers to be part of the audit team. I recently got a request for robotic process automation and AI expert because the company for which they were doing the audit, they are using these technology. Slowly, the business language is changing and more people are aware of so-called, the buzzwords, whatever is mentioned on this slide. And I think out of these, even though everything forms part of artificial intelligence, but per se artificial intelligence has that potential to disrupt everything. So now let's get a little bit more detail in terms of what is the definition of artificial intelligence. Now, if you go by the definition of, I've just taken the definition from Oxford Dictionary. It says, the theory and development of computer systems able to perform tasks normally requires human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision making, and translation between languages. So let me give an example. The example of visual perception is making sense out of pictures. Example of speech recognition is voice to text conversion. Decision making, this is something which we have been using. Translation, an example is Google Translator. Now, let's get a little bit more deeper into what are the types of artificial intelligence which are available for us to understand. Fundamentally, there are three types of artificial intelligence which are available. One is called descriptive, the other one is called predictive, and the third one is called prescriptive. When we talk about descriptive AI, it is looking at what really happened in the past, and it is employed heavily across all the industries. Today, if you look at, most of the company has deployed a business intelligence tool, and that falls under descriptive artificial intelligence. Predictive AI anticipates what will happen and inherently probabilistic in nature. It is employed in data-driven organization as a key source of insights. Prescriptive AI provides recommendation on what to do to achieve goals, and it is employed heavily by leading data and internet companies. I guess most of us are already understand what is descriptive AI, as most of the companies have implemented the BI tool. So let's spend a little bit more time on the predictive and prescriptive AI. So if you look at the bottom of the slide, I have detailed out what are the type of machine learnings. So let's take one by one, because this is the most important part of the presentation, where people should understand what are the types of AI which are available in the market, and people often get confused about what is supervised, what is unsupervised, and what is deep learning. So I'll just stay on this slide for some time and give you a little bit more details and examples of the artificial intelligence. Now, if you go to supervised learning, as it says supervised, in this, now if you try to find out what exactly is this, is an algorithm uses training data and feedback from humans to learn the relationship of given input to a given output. It means the training of data is done under supervision. For example, how the input time of the year and the interest rate predicts housing prices. Now, the other question comes that when shall we use supervised learning? In the conditions where you know the input data, you know the definition of the data, and you know what is the behavior you are expecting, this is when you use the supervised learning. Now, let me give an example. Classify customer based on how likely they are to repay a loan is an example of supervised learning. Predict the weather, whether it is going to rain or not, is an example of supervised learning. Predicting client churns is another example of supervised learning. Predicting a sales lead likelihood of closing is another example of supervised learning. Providing a framework where whether we should hire an employee or not is an example of supervised learning. Create classifiers to filter spam mails is an example of supervised learning. Predict how likely someone is to click on an online ad is a supervised learning. Predicting how many patients a hospital will need to serve in a time period is an example of supervised learning, where we understand the data and we understand what is the output we are expecting is example of supervised learning. Now let's move to unsupervised learning. So what it is? An algorithm explores input data without being given an explicit output variable. Now, in this case, you know the input, but you don't know what you're expecting. And that is where you use unsupervised learning. Let me give you examples of unsupervised learning. Segment customers into group by distinct characteristics, that is age, group. Segment employees based on the likelihood of attrition is an example of unsupervised learning. Segmenting customers to better assign marketing campaign using less distinct customer characteristics, product preferences, etc. is an example of unsupervised learning. Recommend what movie consumers should view based on preferences of other customers with similar attributes is an example of unsupervised learning. And this is something which you must be observing in YouTube also, where you play a video, they will do a recommendation in terms of what you should watch next. Now, the third category is called reinforcement learning. In this type of artificial intelligence, an algorithm learns to perform a task simply by trying to maximize reward it receives for its actions. Now, when shall you use it? Of course, you don't have a lot of training data. You can't clearly define the our ideal end state. Now, and this is, you can say this is by hit and trial. And if the task which is performed is right, you give a credit, and this is how the algorithm learns. So let me give you some examples of reinforcement learning. Optimizing the trading strategy for an option trading portfolio. Stock and pick inventory using robots. So if you have seen the robot arm, which actually picks one good from one place and push it to another place, these type of robots are trained using reinforcement learning. Optimizing pricing in real time for an online auction of a product with limited supply. This is another example of reinforcement learning. Balancing the load of electricity grids in varying demand cycles. Optimizing the driving behavior of self-driving cars. So if you would have seen self-driving cars, this is how the car learns. Now, the last, which is mentioned as deep learning, is a recent phenomenon and have opened up a lot of possibilities in the field of artificial intelligence. Till now, all the algorithm performance whether it was supervised learning, unsupervised, it used to remain constant even after you supply more and more data. Now, with the advent of deep learning, the more data you supply, the more accurate the results are. If you compare the traditional machine learning and deep learning methods, deep learning performs 40 to 50 times better in the image classification, 30 to 40% better in facial recognition, and 25 to 30% better in the voice recognition. Now, when shall we use it? When you have a lot of unstructured data and you want to infer information from it. For example, diagnose health disease from medical scans, understand customer brand perception and usage through images, detect a company logo in social media to better understand joint marketing capabilities, detect defective product on a production line through images. So this is the one which is all the manufacturing companies have been trying. So right now, when the company does manual inspection, there is a human who's sitting there and inspecting each and every product which is coming out of a production line. Now companies have been trying to use deep learning through image processing to see whether the product is of good quality or not. Deep learning is also used in providing language translations. So nowadays you see, I was in China a quarter back, and then there's a guy who was actually talking to me, but he was using a translator real time. And that is the time when I actually really had the experience of how these translator actually works. Another example could be creation of captions for images. So you see a lot of picture, and if you want artificial intelligence to create a caption for that, it can actually do it for you. And of course, more and more we hear about chatbots. So deep learning actually helping companies understand customer better and react to their need more and more. Now, you heard about the examples of the artificial intelligence. What is actually fueling the AI revolution? So fundamentally, if you look at, there are four things which are actually fueling the entire artificial intelligence revolution. One is the increase in the computing power, increase in the speed of communication, availability of huge amount of data, and this is going to increase, this is not going to stop. So more and more data will be available. And of course, the advances in the neural networks. Today, the latest chip which Intel has produced can run over 10 trillion calculations per second. What does it mean? It means if one transaction is to be taken as a dollar bill, and if you stack all those bills, you can go to the moon, come back, and then you go halfway through again. So this is the type of calculation we're talking about. I'm sure you would have had experience in speech-to-text. I remember when I was around 2000, Microsoft had that facility where you can talk, and then it will actually try to understand and create a document. But look at the accuracy right now. You can just say, Alexa, plays Beatle, and within few seconds, it starts playing Here Comes the Sun. You can just say, phone home, and it will actually call your home. Now, it is so common that actually we just take it for granted. From the speed of communication, so you would have seen a change between 3G and 4G. 3G speed was not that great, but the moment we have 4G, usually the amount of consumption which has increased for the contents. And if you look at 5G, and if you take 4G, it has the good road. 5G will be the super highway of communication. It's like 20-lane highway. So you can imagine this at the speed which we can actually communicate. So this is another factor which is actually helping us accumulate a lot of information. And of course, availability of huge amount of data. It means Gartner says that by 2020 itself, we will have 20.4 billion devices which will be connected to the internet. It means we'll create more and more information going forward. And most of these devices actually communicate with the cloud, and this is going to increase more and more. So with the increase in the speed of communication and data capture capability, I think we're going to see a sea change in terms of how AI help us transform lives. If you look at 90% of total data which has been generated is generated in the last 2 years. Right? Now the companies which call themselves AI companies or AI first companies will have to have a robust data management strategy to become future safe. So let me give you more examples of our interactions with our customers and help you understand what they are asking for. Now, the first example is from a aerospace and defense manufacturer. Now, this is a B2B company. They manufacture components for Boeing. For them, when they receive an RFQ, so RFQ itself is a 500-page document. First of all, somebody has to read those 500 pages of document. Then somebody has to create a requirement out of it. Then somebody has to go to a design department. They have to create a prototype. Based on that, they have to go to their vendor. They have to float RFP to their vendor so that they can get the cost. Then they come back. They submit the proposal. When they submit the proposal, if they get the contract, good. If they get the contract, they have to compare in terms of what they said in the proposal and what they have received as a contract. Because the contract, when they receive the contract, is also like a 500-page document and it has references to a lot of standards. Now, this entire process takes 5 to 7 weeks and maybe more than that. And the entire company, people from manufacturing, people from supply chain, people from quality, people from stores, finance, everybody is working on that RFQ. And imagine if they receive a couple of RFQ simultaneously, how they're going to work. They are looking at AI to help them solve this problem. For them, they want to use OCR to translate the RFQ into a requirement document. From the requirement document, they are looking at text analytics, which will help them find out what are the components which will be required to build that particular assembly. And after that, they are looking at an engine which will tell them this part has to be procured from this particular vendor, and this is the probable price for that particular part. So this is one example, and they have already started their journey. The second example, a large consumer electronic company on the automation of invoice verification. Now, this company has around 2,000 vendors, and there are like 30, 40 people who just validate invoice data, or you can just verify whether invoice is correct or not. They are looking at text analytics and artificial intelligence to solve or minimize the workflow which has been there to just validate the invoice. Large apparel manufacturer, they work in tier 2 cities, and for them, demand forecasting, because number of SKUs are huge, they are looking at artificial intelligence to help them do demand forecasting. Another example is this is top 5 companies in India where they spend approximately 10 to 15 crore rupees only on CCTV. And the group CIO was saying that I am not using this information. This is the data which is getting unused. So they wanted us to create a architecture or a solution where they should be able to do a couple of things. Number one, they should be able to identify certain events, and based on that identification of live feed, they should be able to generate alerts. Number two, they wanted that people who are not authorized for a particular section of the factory, if that person goes there, there should be a notification which has to be given. So again, this is another example of data which is the traditional information or data sources like ERP is not useful, but the untraditional, or can say unstructured data which is available in terms of video, where people have started realizing that they need to use more and more unstructured information. Large e-commerce company, they want to do hyper-personalization, and it will fall under supervised learning. Another example in gold loan company, for them, they wanted to do behavior analytics based on the facial expressions. So there were two use cases. Number one, they wanted to make sure that when the person comes and takes a loan against the gold, they want to see whether that person is, what are the behavior he's showing while taking the loan, whether there is some suspicion around that. And second thing they wanted to do is they wanted to make sure that the employees are not, you can say there is a lot of theft which happens in the company, especially in the gold loan company, and most of the time employees are involved in that. So they wanted to make sure that they track that through CCTV. Large insurance company, again, in insurance companies, when the claim comes, the classification of claims and verification of document is huge task, and there are like army of people sitting there who just making sure that documents are correct and what should be the classification. Again, using text analytics, OCR, and artificial intelligence, they're trying to solve this problem. Another example is large IT company. They wanted to do demand forecasting, not revenue forecasting, because this is a public company and accuracy of their forecast makes a lot of difference in their life. Now the last example, which is a very important example in terms of internal audit. Now this is a company which has strong foundations in terms of internal audit processes. They have a robust CCM process, but now they wanted to move to the next level of maturity in the internal audit space. And they said, we want to use artificial intelligence to find unknowns. Now, in the internal audit, there are, most of the time, we have descriptive rules which we define to find out anomalies in the transactions or in the system. But they want to go step ahead where they want to use artificial intelligence to find out unknowns. Now, I think till now I have explained what is happening in the market. I have explained what is AI, what are the types of AI, what are the use cases. Now look at the impact of AI on business functions. Now, if you look at this chart, on the y-axis we have all the industries, and on the x-axis we have top 3 functions by rank in each sector, which will get each function which will get impacted. Now, if you look at the color coding, dark red is operations, which includes manufacturing, SCM, and R&D. Dark blue, information management. Orange is customer-facing functions. Light blue is corporate center functions. Now, if you look at and it is looking at the top 3 functions in each industry where AI will have maximum impact. Overall, if you look at the chart, information technology function will get impacted most, followed by customer service and operations and manufacturing. It means most of the investment right now which is happening in the area of information management and customer service. And these are the two functions within each industry which has a potential to get transformed by AI. Now, often I've been asked this question that, fine, how do we see AI so that it can actually enhance the existing function, or you can say it can have an incremental impact on the business function which we are performing. So if you look at the chart right now, marketing and sales is the function which will get benefit from AI, or you can say incremental benefit from AI, especially in the area of customer service management, next product to buy, price and promotion. Second area which is, or you can say second rate, is the supply chain and manufacturing. There are a lot of companies who are trying to do predictive maintenance via sound predictive maintenance via getting data from CNC directly, yield optimization, procurement and spend analytics. There are a lot of people who are spending money on procurement and spend analytics because this provides incremental value of AI on top of existing functions. Other than marketing and sales and supply chain and manufacturing, I think workforce productivity and efficiency is another area where a lot of money is getting spent right now. We are also internally in GT, we are also working on improving the overall audit methodology, both for internal audit as well as stat audit. Task automation, robotic process automation, along with the AI, is actually very prominent here. At sales and demand forecasting is another one where where we see that AI can have an incremental impact. Now, having said that, now let's look at what are the benefits a company or a function or a business can get if they implement artificial intelligence in the right way. Now, there are several benefits, and you can argue that more or less everything is covered here. Number one is that it actually provides you the ability to enhance the existing product, or sometimes it also helps you create a new product. For example, if I am doing an audit and if I'm using artificial intelligence based tools, it will actually help me enhance my existing services. If I use artificial intelligence tool which help me find unknowns, which is a totally new product, I think it actually helps you to create that new product line, and which can help you to create a different business model altogether. Of course, it can help you increase your operational efficiency. I gave you a lot of examples of predictive maintenance. I gave you an example of how workforce, or you can say work automation. This is where it helps you to do or increase your operational efficiency. Of course, when you use artificial intelligence, it actually will help improve decision making because the accuracy of the output will be greatly enhanced by the artificial intelligence tools. Increase automation and hence better employee engagement by removing mundane tasks. Of course, when you use artificial intelligence, there will be a lot of automation which will happen, and it will actually help you improve the overall employee engagement because then they are not doing the routine mundane tasks. Along with the customer employees, it also helps you improve the customer experience because if you are serving your customer and you're helping them understand what could be the next action. And of course, that helps the customer experience and the employee experience. When your customer experience improves, it also improves your sales. It actually directly hits your top line. I gave you an example of video analytics, so it can also help you to create a safer workplace. And of course, last but not the least, and this is what has been asked to him a lot of time, that it helps you create that niche which you need when you go into the market, you sell your services. Now, when we talk about the benefit, of course, there are the challenges which companies face when they try to do, artificial intelligence, or because of artificial intelligence, what are the challenges they face? Number one is the disruption in business model. Of course, tomorrow you can have a company which can actually totally disrupt the entire business model altogether. For example, there is a company which is working on image processing. So they are just taking picture of sheet metal components, and by looking at the picture, they can do two things. One is they can accurately identify what should be the next step, and that they can also accurately identify that whether there's going to be any defect in this product or not. So that changes the game altogether. So disruption in business model is a challenge number one. Challenge number two, yes, this is what everybody talks about. Will people lose job? And answer is yes, but only if you don't reskill or upskill. Of course, there has to be change in the workforce. This is another challenge, and people find it very, very difficult in terms of how do we transition. Number three is access to data. I think this is the biggest challenge as per me. Even though everybody claims that they have data, but are you tapping onto video data? Are you tapping into voice data? Are you creating data? Just like I gave an example of image processing. So that is the challenge number three, and I think this is where most of the company face problems. Of course, when you apply artificial intelligence, there is always the new way of working, and hence it actually disrupts your operating model. And of course, number six is finding the right talent. The resources which you need for artificial intelligence needs to have different kind of skill sets, and these skill sets are not readily available. Even if they are available, they are like very expensive resources. So this is another challenge which businesses will face due to artificial intelligence. Now, since we have understood, I think to a fair extent, what is artificial intelligence, what are the types, what are the benefits, what are the challenges, I think it's from a business or a company perspective, if you're trying to implement artificial intelligence, I think you need to understand the pillars very well. The number one pillar of any AI transformation is the use case. Now, use case, as I explained in my previous slides, there is a method to this madness. You can see, I gave an example across industries, across business functions. So it should not be difficult to find out the right use case for you to start or to identify. Data, of course, I mentioned that this is the most critical part of the entire AI journey. Till now, most of the companies have been focusing on their structured information, which is in the ERP, CRMs, but they were not tapping onto video, images, voice to text, and those kind of data sources also needs to be tapped and should be part of your data management strategy. Having said that, now what is the right tool which actually works with your existing technology architecture is another question which has been asked a lot. That depends on how you have created your existing technology architecture and what all is required. And of course, this is not something where people can just pick up in a day or two. So you need experts who can actually create your AI roadmap. And then, of course, the most important part is that your senior management has to understand that this is a long drawn roadmap and it takes time to do AI transformation. So there has to be a proper support from the senior management. And I think from an organization perspective, if they really want to start their journey, I think they have to check their maturity level, where they are. I have laid down 4 basic type of maturity level for any company to think about how to go on the artificial intelligence journey. Some may say that this is more or like analytics maturity level, but yes, it does overlap with the analytics maturity level. But I think depending on where you are in the maturity level, you can decide next course of actions. Now, if you want to, as a company, wants to start your AI journey, I think there are quick, simple steps which you can take. Number 1, understand the technology first. Number 2, identify the problems you want to solve with the AI. Prioritize the concrete value you're going to get out of that particular use case. Understand what are the technology gaps, and then bring the experts to set up a pilot project. I think it's a fantastic technology which can change almost all the industries, all the sectors. And as I said, it's a train which is coming. Ride the train and don't jump in front of it. I think that's it from my side. Over to you.
Yes.
Kashi.
Thanks, Dipender, for those insights. We have quite a few questions coming in from our audience. Let me take up one by one. Okay, so one person is asking if is there any difference between deep learning and deep tech? I think somewhere on the slides we heard the term deep learning, but the other term deep tech also has been used quite frequently and is doing rounds. So is there any difference between the two, Dipender?
To be very honest, deep tech and deep learning, I don't think they are same. Deep tech is probably used in some other context, but deep learning is where the machine learns like human brains, where they have the calculators, small calculators, neurons, which actually work with each other and provide you that intelligence. I hope I answered that question.
Okay. So these two are different concepts. They are not same. They are not interchangeable phrases, I suppose.
I think so.
Okay. Excellent. Other question is about, so what is the biggest challenge you see in terms of the AI implementation in the Indian context, especially in the Indian businesses?
As I mentioned in my presentation also that I think data management is the biggest issue, whatever I have seen in my experience, especially in the Indian context. You will hardly see a data management role in any of the companies. Yes, slowly people have started taking note of it, But I think if you want to make sure that your business is future proof, I think data is where you have to start investing. And not only data management from the technology which are like ERP, CRM, HRM, you should also tap into the opportunity on other type of data sources like I mentioned video, images. Just to give an example, there are two gentlemen who've been taking pictures of letters for last 7 years, and they have created a data source which can actually help you predict what kind of yield is going to come from that particular farm. So more and more people, so rather I would say there are two terms. One is data management and there is another one called data generation. Now people have been focusing on data management. We are way behind, but I think data generation is another thing which we should do as part of data management, where we should not leave any opportunity of data creation within the organization which can be used in the future to enhance either your existing product or to monetize that information.
Okay, all right, thanks for that. The other question is, so one of the participants is saying that their organization has already identified the opportunities in their business. So perhaps they do have a use case. So what is as a methodology which can be used to go ahead from here? How do they implement that if they already have identified the opportunity?
I think this concept is mostly used in the startup world. It is called Lean MVP methodology, Lean Minimal Viable Product methodology. I think if they have already identified the use case, I think they should use this methodology, which will help them test the hypothesis they have created very, very quickly. The concept is to fail fast so that you can succeed faster. I think they should just go for that.
Okay. I'm sure this is perhaps more technical than perhaps than is warranted on this webinar. Maybe we can have another one to go detailed into such deeper technical concepts here. There's another question now. This seems something similar to my first question about the deep learning and deep tech. So we are seeing more and more domain names with .ai in it. And so is that really something to do with artificial intelligence, or is that just a fad? Is it just fashionable? So I mean, because once you speak about artificial intelligence, or if you give impression to people that you're doing something about artificial intelligence, you get their attention. So is that the thing, or really is there anything behind this domain name .ai?
So there is nothing behind this name. It is just the name because the moment you say that .ai, it means automatically it reflects that they are doing something in the artificial intelligence area, and that there's nothing else to that.
Okay. But then do we take it for granted that if a company has this domain name with .ai, then it surely is involved in it, or it could be misleading as well?
So it is, most of the time it will not be misleading, but it's just an indication that this is a company which has invested in artificial intelligence, and then the offering which they are providing are based on the artificial intelligence.
Okay. So there's another question. They're asking who drives the AI agenda in the firm. So in your experience, is it business or the IT team?
No, this is not a for sure IT ball game. The agenda has to be driven by business. Most of the time, I have also talked about that in my slides where I said marketing and sales is the function which actually are the leading function in any business where we are trying to implement artificial intelligence. I think from the function perspective, I think CMOs are the ones who are currently driving the artificial intelligence agenda in the organizations. And if you are actually in the manufacturing, then the chief innovation officers or the production head is driving, or the maintenance head is driving the initiative. And IT is only providing the support there.
Right. So it's really the business decision. Obviously, IT will help you to implement.
Yes.
Right. Perfect. Okay, since we have some more time, I think I can take another question here. So I think this is a bit general question. So, so do you think machines will ever grow more intelligent than humans? So this is a classic fear, like the fear of aliens and all that. So do you really see that in future, machines taking over humans?
No, that will never happen, as far as I understand. Now, yes, there is a lot of fear in terms of what artificial intelligence can do. And to an extent, that fear is correct, but that fear is only for people who have not changed or who doesn't want to change themselves to what is happening in the world. If you are ready to reskill, if you are ready to learn new things, I think there is always a scope of learning. Yes, it will have a much wider impact in terms of how do we live our day-to-day life. But I don't think we'll reach to a place where robots will start dictating what shall be done. Right now, we are dictating robots step 1, step 2, step 3, but I don't think there will be a stage where they will start dictating us, saying what shall be done, or start ruling us. The education sector, I think, is in my opinion, I think that is a sector where they should focus more, because more and more application of artificial intelligence you will start seeing, and whatever we've been learning in schools right now may not be that relevant going forward. So I think the educational institutes, the engineering colleges, MBA colleges have to include this and see how the education has to be delivered so that the people who are studying right now are relevant when they come out 10 to 15 years later. I think that is the I think a discussion which has to happen between government, private sector, where they should talk about it and they should include that in the curriculums. And it is happening. It's not, is it happening? It is happening. Yes, in the West it is more prevalent. In Indian context, we see, because we have a lot of people, as they say that in the West they have sensors, but in here we have people, right? But sooner or later those sensors will become cheaper and they will start replacing human beings here in India.
Right. Absolutely. I think this takes this whole discussion to a different philosophical level, perhaps. As somebody wise has said, there are 3 types of people in the world. The first type make things happen. The second type watch things happen and they adapt themselves accordingly. And the third category are the people who wonder what happened. I hope most of us would try to fall, if not in the first, at least in the second category, adapt ourselves, learn new things, reskilling. A lot of things are going to change. The jobs will undergo a lot of change. In fact, when you said that I think some of the professions that you feared would be redundant soon, you're quite ominous when you said accounting and auditing would be perhaps out of fashion because of artificial intelligence. That certainly sends a signal to many of us here. But yes, I'm sure we will learn new things and adapt to the future as humans have always done. So that's great, Dipender. Thanks a lot for your insights. And thank you all the people on this webinar who took time to join us today. And special thanks to those who have submitted questions to us. We hope we have managed to address some of those questions well. Those we have not would be taken up later. We will be addressing those questions individually through email. We look forward to come back with the next in this Tech Basics web series that we have. If you want us to take up any particular topic, feel free to write in and give your suggestions. If you wish to view this webinar again, you can do that on Grand Thornton India LLP's YouTube channel. We appreciate your participation today, and we look forward to being in touch. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. That concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.